going to turn it over to Alan in a minute, make him listen to the echo behind him, and then invite up a number of representatives from county departments to talk about what's going on from their perspective, both countywide and again, particular to North Highline. And then we're going to reserve the full second half of the meeting for conversation, questions, conversation with you and us in the community. And so let me start by reporting back for the last kind of a summary, brief summary if I can, of the last year. Some of the key work that I've been engaged in on the council level is to approve and institute a resilience fund for King County. And that is to support particularly immigrants and refugees countywide, but also other people who feel under attack in our communities. We've certainly seen since the first of the year on a national level, at-risk communities feel more and more at risk, and a particular need to invest, affirm, and support immigrants and refugees. The Resilience Fund is an opportunity to do that, to provide know your rights training, to provide legal defense, support for community organizations already supporting immigrants and refugees, to provide capacity building and more opportunity to do that. The county made a one-time investment in that fund, but recognizing we wanted our money to be able to go further, we partnered with the Seattle Foundation. They have made a $125,000 contribution as well, and we're working to leverage those two contributions with other foundations, corporations, individuals in the community to contribute as well, recognizing that throughout the county we have these needs, these concerns, and we're really all in it together. Countywide, 1 in 4 King County residents is foreign born. So we're really talking about people throughout our community, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers. I'm also proud of some of the work that King County is doing in restorative justice. And I want to acknowledge that we haven't done enough. We need to do more. But we are taking some significant steps around restorative justice, particularly the FERS program for youth who are involved in domestic violence issues. Rather than being booked and locked up immediately, they have the FERS program, a residential voluntary program to go to provide that separation, that break from their family, and have some counseling, some casework to determine what other support the youth and the family might need to be able to have a safe, peaceful reconciliation, rather than anyone end up with a criminal record in the process. Something we want to avoid if we can at all, knowing the lifelong effects of having that criminal record. And then investments locally. The county last fall adopted a 2-year biennial budget. I was very pleased that over $1 million was invested in Steve Cox Park and resurfacing the field and other work there, making sure that that resource here in North Highline and White Center is maintained as well. I will stop there. I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about a number of other issues in the community as when we get into community conversation. And with that, I want to turn it over and introduce Alan Painter, who, as I said, oversees the Community Service Area Program for King County. Please join me in welcoming Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody?
Yes.
You'll do anything to avoid an echo, won't you?
You don't want to go crazy. That's how happening to you. Welcome, everybody. This is part of our annual meeting of organizations across unincorporated King County. Today we brought representatives. As you can see, we have a lot of representatives from King County because they care so much about this community. What we have is these meetings for an opportunity for you to ask questions, comments about issues of interest to you about different aspects of King County. I'll be introducing different representatives, so say a minute or two, but hopefully not a second more, and then we'll open it up for questions or comments from all of you. The idea is why we have so many talented staff here is ideally we'll be able to answer your questions here rather than having to follow up, but we will follow up if necessary. Other things we do is we provide an annual grant program, a small grant that we advertise for community organizations across unincorporated King County. This year we were able to provide funds for the White Center Jubilee Days coming up when? No.
19th to the 23rd.
The 19th to the 23rd, so the county's provided through the CSA program some support for the Jubilee Days. I was by Steve Cox Park, there's some Little Leaguers playing. We provided some support for low-income kids to be able to buy equipment. And we've also supported the Shorewood Repair to help some issues at the park here. So that's one thing we do, look for applications, they're very simple applications. In the fall, we make the awards at the beginning of the year. We also put together a work program of what are the different initiatives that are underway in King County. We had some in the back, I don't know if they're up, we still have some according from Marissa, that tells you all the different initiatives that are occurring in this community, who the contact person is, their phone number, and their email address. And then I think that's the main thing, so let's get on with the next person. I do want to introduce Bong Santo Domingo, our sound engineer, as well as Bong will be taking notes if there are issues we need to follow up with, as well as Marissa Alegria, who is in the back welcoming everybody and asking you to sign in. We ask you to sign in, so again, if there are opportunities to follow up, we'll be able to do so. So I will now start the 2-minute presenters, and the first from the executive's office is Rhonda Berry, who is the deputy executive.
Thank you, Alan. Good evening. As Alan said, I'm Rhonda Berry. I'm Deputy King County Executive, and I am going to try to stay within the 1 minute that Alan has allocated for me. I bring you greetings tonight on behalf of Executive Dow Constantine. This is part of our listening tour. We use a lot of different methods for hearing from our customers, our constituents, our public. This is but one. We use social media, cards, letters, phone calls, you name it. If there's a way to communicate, we are using it. So I appreciate you being here tonight so that we can hear from you directly what you think about the county, what things we can do more of, less of, and even new ideas that we haven't thought of. Alan mentioned we've got lots of staff here to answer your questions. I have compatriots from the executive's office here with me as well that will answer questions as they come up. So I'm just going to say thank you for being here. We appreciate your time and look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Rhonda. Now, representing the sheriff is Chief Patty Cole Tyndall.
Yes, I'm not the sheriff, but he's going to try to get here. He had a conflict, but if not, I'm prepared to answer whatever questions when we get to that point. One thing I wanted to say about your community, I'm sure you've all read the article that was in the paper this weekend. Wasn't that awesome? Showing the just about the wonderful community that you have here and some of the cool things that are occurring. So I just wanted to say kudos. That was pretty neat. So the one thing I think I'll start off with is calls for service in your area for the first 5 months of this year as compared to first 5 months of last year are down. They're down 7%. So we can get into crime stat data later if you have specifics that you might want to ask about. But I think that's, 7%, it's not double digit, but that's something. That's a decent number, and it's only 5 months of the year. So I think that's something to be proud of. So, I'll just wait, I think, till our time, till you have questions. I have a number of things I can talk about, but I just think the 1 minute will just...
The sheriff often gets more than a minute.
I'm sure he does. He probably says all kinds of things. Okay.
Thank you, Patty.
Yes, okay.
Our next speaker is our county assessor, John Arthur Wilson.
Good evening, everybody. Joe, great to see you and Rhonda. And Alan and I go way back to when we used to work in that other Washington together. But it's great to be out here. Primary thing I want to raise with you is if you're a property owner, you have a home here, and you're 65 or actually 61 or older, and my colleague Rich Watson is here, and you have less than a household income of $40,000 a year, have we got a deal for you? We'll give you a break on your property taxes. Part of what we're trying to do here as we move forward is everybody's values are going up. Same true of this community as well. But what we're trying to do is make sure that we can keep people in their homes. And working with Executive Constantine, we're looking at strategies to allow people to age in place and not find themselves literally taxed out of their home. So we'll be open to answering any questions, talk about the process, how you can appeal your property taxes, how do they get formed that way, and what we can do to help you. Alan, thank you.
Thank you, John. We all drove here today on county roads, or most of us did, and the director of the department responsible for the roads and much, much more is Harold Taniguchi.
Yay! Hello. I'm the Department Director of Transportation, and our department has 5 divisions. We operate the water taxi if you want to go to Vashon or West Seattle. We operate Boeing Field, a fleet group, and the two probably of most interest to you, Roads Division and the Transit Division. On the road side, we're responsible for the maintenance and the safety-related road safety on the roadways. And so if you have any questions about that, we have the Deputy Director of the Road Services Division back there, Jay Osborne. And then on the bus side, if you have any questions about bus routes or connections or anything like that, we also have a Senior Planner, Doug Johnson, right there. If you have any questions about the media relations involving our department, we have our Communications Manager right here, Jerry Peon. We're here all night to answer any questions you have, but thank you very much for coming out tonight. Looking forward to a great meeting.
Now, I want to add something. Doug is retiring, I think, this year, so this is his last town hall meeting, so we should all give him thanks.
Very tough question.
Representing the Department of Natural Resources and Parks is the county's Parks Director, Kevin Brown.
Thank you, John. First, I want to say, look out this wonderful window and see one of our local parks, Dick Thurnow Park, named after one of the greatest residents of this area. Okay. So as Alan mentioned, I'm Kevin Brown, Parks Director for King County, and I'm representing the Department of Natural Resources and Parks. We have 4 divisions, wastewater, which handles sort of all the flow of our wastewater treatment facilities, solid waste. They have transfer facilities, recycling programs throughout many of our communities. Water and Land Resources Division, they have numerous programs from forestry, farming, flood protection, stormwater. We got some folks from WLR here tonight, Doug. And last, and here's my heart, is parks. We have about 200 parks in King County, 175 miles of trails, actually 28,000 acres of open space. We have a lot of local facilities in this area. If you have any questions about parks or other DNRP questions, please ask me, and we'll see where we can go. Thanks much.
Thank you, Fred. Representing the Department of Community and Human Services is a duo.
A trio.
Whoa! Standing by the second. Mark Ellenbrook, Jim Allendroff, and Cheryl Martin.
Great. Well, thank you all for having us here this evening. As Alan mentioned, the Department of Community and Human Services, I'm Mark Ellenbrook. I manage the Housing and Community Development Program, and we've actually been pretty active in your community the last year and a half, working on the recently opened White Center shelter. So thank you all for participating in that with us. We, in our program, do the affordable housing, the homeless programs, as well as housing repair, community development, and all of our housing policy work. We've got a bunch of materials back on the table as well about the upcoming Vets and Human Services levy that we can talk about, and other items that we can talk about. And then I'll let Jim talk about behavioral health.
Great, thank you. Good evening, my name is Jim Bollendroff, and I'm the Director of the King County Behavioral Health and Recovery Division. I'm pleased to be in your community and let you know one of our largest providers is 1.5 miles away, Navos Behavioral Health Services, and they provide integrated services. Navos, this way. They provide integrated behavioral health services, both mental health and substance abuse, and integrate physical health care into the delivery of services. And one of the big changes you'll see over the delivery of behavioral health services in the coming years is a real big push to move upstream as much as possible. And through levies such as the Best Starts for Kids, we're able to implement new programs where we can actually intervene much earlier in the delivery of behavioral health conditions. The other thing you'll hear a lot about in the coming years is mental health first aid. And mental health first aid is the equivalent to CPR, CPR being for medical, mental health first aid being how do you identify when somebody's got a psychiatric or substance use problem, and then what do you do to help that person? So we're really trying to make sure that we move services upstream to the degree possible. And as Mark said, we'll be here at the end and certainly open to answering any further questions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cheryl Markham, and I'm a policy advisor in the department. And I have a little bit of a unique role in that I work across programs and across some of the departments that you heard we were talking about tonight, including working across sectors that we have with private foundations. Particularly the Seattle Foundation. And I've been working the last couple of years on a project called Communities of Opportunity, of which White Center is a site for communities of opportunity through the lead entity, the White Center Community Development Association, with a number of partners. And so we're really supporting community-owned work to devise solutions that work for the community around increasing health and well-being outcomes for the community.
Three heads better than one. Department of Public Health is Andrea Akia.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andrea, and I am the director for the Communities of Opportunity Initiative that you just heard of. I'm joined by my colleagues from Public Health, Mohammed, Shirley, Lois, did I forget? Oh, and Cheryl. We're all here, and I'm happy to answer your questions. I wanted to highlight a little bit more about the Communities of Opportunity Initiative. It's one of the newer initiatives at King County, and it's really King County and our philanthropic partners' commitment and vision that all residents in King County will be healthy and have opportunity in their lives, regardless of where they live, regardless of their race or ethnicity or income. And so it's a commitment that we're very excited to be working with community, and as Cheryl said, our initiative is really community-led, and we are supporting communities in their leadership and their leadership development in achieving these shared goals that we have around health and well-being. We are really excited to be working in this community and investing resources and bringing new resources. And we're excited because we know that there's already been a strong network of leadership and collaboration here. We want to be able to learn from and share those lessons across the county and expand COO in the upcoming years. So we started with a small investment from the county. It was added to by the Seattle Foundation, and it's grown to be close to $7.5 million over the next year and hopefully annually after that. So
Thank you, Andrea. Representing the Department of Permitting and Environmental Review is Cheryl Lux and Kevin LeClaire.
I'm Cheryl Lux, and I'm the product line manager for code enforcement. So I handle a lot of the code enforcement. And Kevin LeClaire is here as one of our planners to help answer any questions you might have. So I'm going to keep it short.
Kevin, do you want anything or wait for questions?
Well, I will just say, so I'm a senior planner in the urban product line, and the urban product line covers all of the unincorporated areas of King County that are inside the urban growth area. So one of my focus areas is White Center, and then also like Skyway, West Hill, Lake Ridge areas. And so a lot of the areas that you think of that most people just see of as part of the city of Seattle or the part of the city of Renton is actually under our jurisdiction, but it's unincorporated King County. We've got a lot of exciting things actually happening in White Center right now. I put a little map up there. The final phases of Greenbridge are in the planning phases right now, and that's a map of the current master plan from the Housing Authority. So I encourage you to take a look at that. We can talk about kind of what their schedule is for that. We also have some other projects going on around the community, so we can talk about that later. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Kevin. You can take a seat up here. I think we'll be seeing more.
Oh, really? Why is that?
I don't know why, I'm just
guessing,
it's
huh?
your opportunity.
Oh, great.
Our last scheduled speaker is Deborah Jacobs of the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight.
I have one extra chair there, but I know it's not for me. Hey, everybody, the King County Office of Law Enforcement Oversight is intended to help build trust between the public and the law enforcement who serve you. The King County Sheriff's Office serves unincorporated King County and about 12 contract cities. So the way we serve the public's interest is having mostly a role of reviewing what the Sheriff's Office does. No, wait for that. So, real quick, we look at the internal investigations that the Sheriff's Office conducts and make sure that they were thorough and objective. If not, we give them some pushback, ask them to do more. In the end, we might not certify them if we're not ultimately satisfied, and we report that to the public. That's individual cases. We do systemic reviews. We look at trends. We're doing a use of force review right now. How often is force being used? Who's using it? What kind of force? Is it being used disproportionately on any particular communities? Third pillar of our work is outreach, and I'm here with my colleague Toshiko Hasagawa, and she's trying to reach out. If you have a community organization or just a group of friends that you would like to have learn more about law enforcement oversight, we would love to work with you and organize something like that. I want to mention that sometimes concerns about law enforcement are something that people don't feel that comfortable talking about in public. I have cards. There's a little sign that says Office of Law Enforcement. Both Toshiko and I have cards out. If anyone would like to grab them, you can call us. We'd be happy to talk about it. We also comment on policies for the Sheriff's Office. We care deeply about inclusive policies that will help ensure that no one community is treated differently than another, and that fair and humane practices are engaged. So thank you very much. I think I took my full 2 minutes.
You did. Very interesting. Before we get to the questions and comments, I want to introduce a couple other folks who are in the audience who you should know about. From the Office of Emergency Management, Michelle Chatterton. So if it starts really rocking and shaking here, we go underneath the tables and Michelle will tell us exactly what to do, but she's also an expert in emergency management. You have thoughts about how to plan for your home, she's the one to go to. Seth Oakes from the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention, the Community Works Program. His crews are the ones that clean up the neighborhood here, downtown White Center, quite frequently. They do an amazing job, so kudos to Seth and his team. They really and from the Office of Cable Compliance, Chris Jeremio, and she's there to answer your questions if your cable bill is too high or whatever. It's getting a little bit more complicated than that, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, we open it up now for comments and questions.
Alan, you did a really good job keeping everybody limited to less than a minute. And so we have far more than half the time we hoped to reserve for a conversation. Yes, yeah. Oh, wait, can I invite a department heads, lead people for each department to join us up here so we're all ready to help field questions? Not everybody, but one person who can help refer questions as needed. Thanks.
Okay, I would encourage all of you, when we leave tonight, to drive down Myers Way. On the Seattle side of the border, you will see what you see. And what I would like to see is as much help as possible from you guys, not just basic political talk, but actual real roll up your sleeves and ask for favors, twist some wrists, but get Seattle to do something about that. There was a homicide down there Monday. I guess on the news somebody got killed, somebody got angry and hit the guy with a baseball bat. As a result, I know annexation's a huge deal that King County's trying to get us to annex to Seattle and prior to Burien. I'm just gonna say right now, in my community, there's so much anger towards Seattle over what's happening on Myers Way and all the problems we've had with the homeless coming into our community, causing their problems, stealing, drug use, all that stuff, prostitution, and then going back over into Seattle. That in my community, you can pretty much kiss annexation goodbye. It's not gonna happen because there's just so much anger there. What I propose you do is with all the pot shops that are going on and whatnot, and I know that there's been 3 sets of special legislation at the state level What I think this community needs is some of that money, tax money, coming out of all these pot shops to come into this community and help us. As last I remember, we had like $57 million of infrastructure that we're behind on roads and other stuff. And one of the best things you could do for us is to try and channel some of that money or most of it back into this community. We are poor, we need help, and we don't particularly like this concentration of the homeless coming in, and along with we're a poor community, and it seems like we're being dumped on. We need help, we need
Yeah.
help.
There's a lot there. And let me start by saying, I stood with the executive and the mayor over a year ago when they declared an emergency over homelessness in our community. And that's one expression. It's a key expression that we see in Myers Way, we see in White Center, we see frankly around the entire county, of income inequality, of housing prices and housing affordability, it becoming harder and harder for people to stay housed and make ends meet. And we as a community, we as a county, need to do as much as we can to support each other and make sure that we're preserving public safety. That's one of 3 shootings in White Center in the last 2-3 weeks as well. So
This week, yeah. 2 this week, well, 1 shooting, 1 all that, yeah.
Councilmember, Karen with the exec's office here, maybe she can give an update on the status of the annexation issue.
Karen,
Just give the status.
Karen Freeman, we'll give her a minute to get her bag off her shoulder and
Sorry.
wits about her.
Thank you. So, as folks may or may not know, North Highline as one community, for the purposes of moving forward annexation options for you to consider, pieces of it were divided, right, when Burien annexed the southern portion. Then there's the northern portion, which is White Center and a number of other neighborhoods. And then there's a thing that people call the triangle, which the South Park Bridge goes across there, and it's a portion of the South Park community and a large business park. Burien removed themselves from consideration of annexation for area wide. And so the city of Seattle then moved forward with an attempt to annex the triangle first. They're staging it. And then they want to move forward with an attempt to annex area wide, which is to go to ballot with you folks and talk about why they feel like annexing to Seattle would be a positive thing. We've been working on the triangle. It's complicated. It involves the bridge and infrastructure and lots of different things, and we're working on an interlocal agreement that works out the legal and operational details of how we would transfer governance from the county to the city. And it's just taking a lot longer than anyone would hope, and I'm sure it feels like longer for community members, and I'm sorry about that. So that's the status, is that we are currently talking with them about the triangle, and we hope to move to area wide, which regrettably I think will probably slow down a little bit more because of the inevitable new mayor in the city of Seattle, though there will be a new administration, and when that happens, there's a little bit of education that needs to happen with new elected officials and their staff. So, but that's the status. Yes.
I understand that Seattle is getting money from the state to do this for 6 years or so. I don't know exactly how it works. How is it assured that that money, if we do get annexed, how do we assure that money comes here to this community rather than spread somewhere else?
Karen, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I was just going to say, all of you, if you'd remind us, if we're not, since we're not using the microphone, if you need us to repeat the question, or if you can't hear us, or if we need to pick up the mic, just let us know.
Thank you, Councilmember. So the question was, the city of Seattle will be getting state funds in order to facilitate the annexation. How can we be assured that those funds will come to North Highline? And the answer is by law. By law, those funds that are collected need to come back into North Highline. It's important to note that it's not a new tax. It's just the portion of the sales tax that is collected that would have otherwise gone to the state. The state is saying, instead of sending it to us, put it back into North Highline for a period of time.
How long?
7 years.
The accounting for that, so you can see that that came back.
Yes, they have to submit any annexing city, and many cities have done this, I think 8 now. You have to make an Excel spreadsheet and say, this is where we spent the money, and send it to the Department of Revenue in order to complete regular audits to account for those funds.
And when the 7 years is over,
It's a challenge. The cities that went first, Auburn, Kent, Renton, originally it was 10 years, now it's been shortened to 7 years. Those cities, 10 years sunset is coming, and they're looking at losing those funds, and it's gonna be a challenge. Annexations are challenging for everyone involved, right? It's the unknown, making this transition, figuring out how to make the funds work. A lot of the areas that had business cores and more higher value AV houses that cities, gobbled up when they incorporated and annexed, 15, 20 years ago. The areas that are left kind of struggling, trying to figure out how are we going to make this work for us. It's difficult.
And in Seattle's case, it was more like 60 years ago since they last.
I think that the last time they completed an annexation was in the 50s.
Yeah.
I do. I think that's right.
and they still don't have sidewalks.
In some areas of Seattle, they do not have sidewalks, including in the executive neighborhood. So he feels that too. Yeah.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. I'm here for more questions. I'm sure there'll be more.
And if and when Seattle works through that process in the triangle and then might be talking about North Highline, that would be a public vote of the residents of North Highline as to whether or not to accept that offer of annexation. That's Phyllis.
I'm actually both a King County employee and a resident of White Center, and I want to thank the Department of Transportation for the new signage on 106, 107. As you come down to 26, it tells you that you're going too fast, and they've also resurfaced the road. My husband was hit by a person that ran a red light going the other direction in that intersection in the fall and seriously injured, so I really appreciate any reminder to get folks to slow down there.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again, please?
Well, we need more.
Yeah, we're in as much as you can give us. Anything that says to people, stop, you're going too fast.
Stop, slow down. The photo speed light on Roxbury, let me just say, one might find that to be persuasive to remember to slow down too. Pat?
Yes, I'd like to get us back to what was already mentioned about Myers Way and Top Hat and the funding issue. And I believe that Ms. Berry is a person to ask budget questions of the county. And we all would like to know, where is the tax money that our pot shops of this area are generating for this area? We hear huge dollar amounts. We don't see that kind of money coming to this community. So where is that money and what's the plan?
Okay, so I can't answer that question. We expect $1.3 million in tax revenue to be generated from marijuana establishments in this area. That money has been designated for two purposes. One of the purposes is to fund a code enforcement officer to enforce regulations related to marijuana. The rest of the money will go to the sheriff's office for patrol. So that's how it's been designated. $1.3 million, code enforcement and sheriff.
So does that mean that
That's
patrol
not just for
patrol
White
numbers?
Center, though. That
Okay.
money is for the whole county. Yeah, just to be clear.
So
Is that by county code or by state statute?
It's the state.
So what sense does it make to concentrate all the marijuana businesses in White Center and Skyway and then distribute all of the money countywide?
I have something to add to that the sheriff wanted me to talk about. It doesn't have to do with the store stores are increasing. You guys are, in this area, are getting a lot more
Well,
stores.
where are there any stores outside of White Center and outside of Skyway? In
There are.
unincorporated King
They're in
County?
Auburn.
In unincorporated King County?
Yeah.
Does West Seattle have any?
Yes.
Two.
Three.
Two.
Three.
We've got,
Yeah. Sir. What?
how many does West
So there's
Seattle
not
have?
a corner
I
of the
don't know
county
how
that
much
you
they
don't have
have
a
some,
bum store.
but I'm not gonna tell you what the concentration here.
But you
You
have
do
more
get-
than
okay.
extend on it than we do.
We're talking
But,
about five already
but we're
here.
here representing county government, so I can talk, so let's talk about the county.
It all seems to be concentrated.
Yeah. I'm agreeing with you.
And I don't know where the money's coming from.
Right.
Can you tell us how much money it
Okay.
seems like it? That's, and
1.3.
how it gets distributed? County
Electric
level.
for
For
marijuana,
marijuana.
$1.3 million.
That's all the
That's
county
all.
gets
Yeah.
per year?
1.3 million, yeah.
So I can
I'm sorry.
speak to the location of the shops, the retail shops that we've got right now. So just recently, last year, the ordinances were updated to put a 1,000-foot separation between any new retail shops. And we also have business licensing in place to basically document where those approved businesses were that were in effect prior to that separation ordinance. And we now have mapping that shows us that basically where that separation is. And those retail shops are only allowed in commercial business zones. And so based on the mapping of Skyway, West Hill, and White Center, which is near and dear to us right now, there's no more area for more retail shops. All of that 1,000-foot separation has now blanketed the entire commercial zone for retail, which is basically the walk-up 21 and older only stores.
So since you're familiar with the map of where the stores are located,
Yes.
can you name one or more that are not in White Center and not in Skyway?
There's, oh shoot, what, you draw me up. In Skyway, West Hill, there's several of them.
No, outside of White Center and outside of Skyway.
See, I work in the urban unincorporated areas, not the rural areas, so I don't actually permit those retail shops. When I'm looking at the licenses, I'm putting it right on White Center, and I haven't looked at the rural areas.
I mean, what folks need to remember is the county's purview for citing these facilities is inside the urban growth area in unincorporated areas. There are only 3 of them left. There's North Highline, there's the Skyway area of Fairwood, and there's a big urban island in Federal Way. So those are the areas where folks can apply to King County to cite
But
retail
Right, and we've been
facilities.
advocating for that to expand. What's the status of that? What's the status of the
Again,
expansion?
those are the
What's
areas,
the
those
status
urban,
of expansion?
but Mark, what I'm telling you is, those urban areas are where we have the purview to cite locations. Since we put in the new
By county
buffer,
policy.
Mark, would you let him finish, please?
by virtue of the fact that those are the only urban areas left in unincorporated King County. And since we put in the 1,000-foot buffer, the new facilities have ceased because the buffer prevents new facilities, as we're seeing right now.
New retail shops.
And also because all of the slots had been taken and licensed already.
Right,
Yeah.
the lottery for giving
Before-
up those licenses.
Conveniently before the 1,000-foot buffer was entertained by the
Right.
council.
We were put in a pool by the state with a number of cities in King County. Then what happened was a number of those cities banned them. And so the number for the cities and the county that were left in the pool then went up.
Which cities in the pool banned them?
I don't have the list with me right now, but I can get it for you. And it was an
It's a small
organic
number
thing that happened.
within the unincorporated area.
No,
It's
these are
small,
urban
relatively
cities.
small population, like Algona and Pacific. for
Urban
example.
cities.
Well, Algona and Pacific.
No, a number of other cities did as well.
The
Well, yeah,
incorporated
but
cities.
CTAC is not, CTAC is its own purview.
Right, and that's what I'm
Kent
saying is that
Kent
this-
is its own purview.
But
Federal
the
Way is
state
its
put
own
us in a
purview.
pool, they said X number of licenses are going to go to these cities and King County within King County. Then because a number of the cities banned it, the cities that were left and King County then had to accept more facilities.
Well, King County has a population of 250,000. The state estimated,
Mark, unincorporated King County.
unincorporated King County.
Right.
I'm sorry, unincorporated King County has a population of 250,000 right now. The state estimated 325,000 in the whole pool. So that is an extreme majority of those license slots that the county should have expected. And the remaining unincorporated areas make up maybe 50,000. So 200,000, that's 4/5 of the unincorporated area, you're saying isn't open to having a marijuana store in their neighborhood. And we're going to concentrate them 5 times in the urban area where there's 50,000 of those residents
So
live.
Mark, you have expressed that you feel pressure about the number of stores that have cited in Skyway, and North Highline has expressed that as well, and we are sensitive to that, which is why we put into place the new buffer.
And which
to try
stores
and
are going
address
to
that
close?
need.
Which stores are going to close as a result of those buffers?
I don't think that,
They're grandfathered in.
That's right.
No stores will close, no new permits will be issued.
Well, we're wondering about that because actually a permit has been issued for a store that's never opened. And the county has told us point blank that they cannot deny that permit.
I filed a code enforcement complaint against that building, and it was closed like that.
It was
And
closed
the-
because it was closed because the store is not open, and at this point in time, our, opinion is that unless they can show some sort of, intent not to vacate that, it will not be allowed.
What? Would you say that again?
If you want a non-conforming use, and you abandon that non-conforming use, you can't reestablish a non-conforming use. With the 1,000-foot buffer, right now, opening that store would be a non-conforming use.
Which
Our
store?
opi-
It's at 15th and 108th.
The one below the rest.
They have a license, but they
Across from
haven't
Uncle
opened a
Ike's.
store.
That's one downtown White Center.
It's across from Uncle Ike's.
Thank you.
And because they haven't opened, we don't have a code enforcement because we can't say, you gotta close your store because you haven't opened.
Well,
But we've also said that you do not have a use established, and therefore you cannot claim non-conforming when you want to open.
So how will that affect their ability to renew their county marijuana license in November?
At this point in time, we wouldn't renew it because they don't have a valid
Okay.
All right.
use.
Gil?
What about the Bear Star site? The downtown White Center that supposed to have a marijuana processing facility in the basement. Can anyone here tell us what's happening?
Sure. Yes, I can. Yeah, so I'm actually reviewing the conditional use permit for that. So the way it works, the zoning down there is CB, or community business, with a special district overlay that also allows another set of, basically grandfathered in a bunch of other sort of light industrial uses that were already part of downtown White Center, some auto shops and other things that would not typically be allowed in a community business zone. So these folks had that site, that building, I think his name is James Wyman, is the owner of the building, and he leased out the upstairs to Beer Star, which is the growler store upstairs with the coolers and everything for beer. And he had the vacant, basically storage space downstairs, and he found, I guess he partnered with some friends or business partners to essentially open up a marijuana production area in the downstairs level that opens out into the alley. The way the code is written, it allows up to 2,000 square feet of canopy area under what they call a Tier 1 production license as a permitted use outright. And so they came to us and they said, we would like to do 4,000 square feet of canopy area of production in that downstairs vacant space. And we
What
said
is
that
canopy area? Please.
canopy area is based on, I'm not a total expert in this, so don't completely quote me on it, but what they do is they basically, each plant takes up a certain amount of canopy, like a tree has a canopy. So they measure that as canopy area, and they are allowed a certain gross amount of area of canopy area. So basically, it works out to a certain amount of number of plants they're allowed to grow and process. And so that amount of canopy area is then licensed by the state. So they get a license for a certain amount of canopy area. Anything over 2,000 square feet or less than 30,000 square feet requires a conditional use permit. And so that's what is proposed, is up to 4,000 square feet of canopy area and a small processing area in the same building, actually upstairs, but behind locked doors. And that's what they're proposing. I actually have, after we're kind of done talking, I have a small set of the plans here, so you can see what their layout of the building is.
Well, this
They've got
is
it broken up into
I got a
basic
question.
row rooms. Yeah.
Clearly, this marijuana stuff's an emotional issue for some people, right? What's the evidence that shows that increased marijuana stores and production leads to other problems? I mean, is that what we're seeing from the sheriff's
No,
department?
we are not seeing that.
So is this just a subjective, sort of emotionally based opinion that you guys have, or are you guys concerned that selling marijuana in our community is actually leading to crime?
No, I'm concerned about being a processing plant in my community.
And based on what, though? Based on what? What's the problem
Because
with
all
it?
this
Well, look,
canopy-
this is a really novel proposal.
I'm just curious, just evidence-based. I mean,
where else is
Mark,
there a licensed marijuana
Mark?
grow in the basement of a public building?
Mark, thank you.
My name's Chad, by the way.
Hi, Chad.
Hi.
Let's try to have this be let's not hold each other's feet to the fire. Let's have a conversation.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm open. I'm not saying that it's good or bad either way. I'm just saying let's make objective decisions about whether or not we should have marijuana in our communities or not, stores, and if it's leading to problems, we should address those problems.
So
That's all I'm saying.
If I may, so the conditional use permit process, there's a comment period, and there is a set of decision criteria, and I would encourage anybody, I was telling Liz this earlier, the whole point of a conditional use permit process is to notify the community and get your feedback about what you think about it, and help provide documentation. And sometimes we get feedback that isn't necessarily directly related to it, but it doesn't matter. We want to hear from the community about what their concerns are. And as you said, if you have some evidence, if you can provide us with documentation as to, here's a study that shows that this is a risk to our community, we can use that. That's what a conditional use permit is all about. We can add conditions.
Well, you should talk with public health, because they're the ones that are experts.
Well, no, I would just say from a public health perspective, right, like neighborhoods without sidewalks, without lights, that's a problem, right? Like, that's where money should go. Like, people get hit by cars when they don't have sidewalks, and kids walk into school. Like, that's real data that shows that, right? So those sort of infrastructure type things that our community needs, that's where our energy should be going towards.
You know, when I grew up in Chicago, in a poor neighborhood, there was a bar on every corner, and alcoholism is a problem. If you know anything about the Coalition for Drug-Free Youth, which the county gives grant money to, they recently did a presentation to NEWAC, and the kids in North Highline are much more at risk for drug use. And that's associated both with the poverty that they're living under, the concentrated poverty, and the absence of healthy businesses and role models.
Right.
So we need those. We need role models.
Oh, I agree 100%. I just don't know if targeting marijuana stores is the solution to that.
I don't think
clearly
anybody's targeting
alcoholism
marijuana
is
stores
a problem.
when
Oxycodone's a problem, right?
Yeah.
Xanax is a
Yeah.
problem, right? So
Yeah.
we're going to target Highline Hospital and all the hospitals that prescribe this?
Pharmaceutical
I mean,
companies definitely.
Well, sure, but we're talking about things that we can control, right? I mean,
Lois, for a comment from Public Health?
yeah, please.
So I'm not gonna, I don't have the data on the top of my head about retail marijuana and grows and what that does. But I can tell you that the data around, I think the youth-free Drug-Free Youth Coalition is great. One of the Navos staff people leads that and gets community agencies and interested folks involved in that. We are working with the White Center CDA under the Communities of Opportunity work we're doing to engage our youth-serving agencies in White Center, especially those that serve 4th grade to 8th grade. They're kind of not a lost, but they're an overlooked population. There's a lot of emphasis on preschool to 3rd grade, get your reading skills. There's a lot of emphasis on high school graduation. That 4th grade to 8th grade, they kind of swing on their own a lot. So we are working, Aaron's back there, he and I are partnering to work with all the youth-serving agencies. We've invited them all to different trainings to talk about the challenges that kids in the neighborhood face, the trauma that many of them have experienced in their lives, and what we know about kids that have high levels of trauma. And their response is they don't always make the best choices about how to spend their time and what to do with their time. So we are trying to get upstream of that, talk to those folks who are engaged, New Futures, Boys and Girls Club, the after-school programs, a lot of the school folks, and work with them so that they understand some of the things they can do as staff in those agencies to help engage those kids in different ways of using their time, different ways of thinking about how to heal some of the pain that they have based on what they've seen, experienced, what their families are going through, the poverty that they're experiencing, etc. So we are doing that work. It is slow work. It doesn't happen overnight, but we are engaged. It's one of the programs that folks said they wanted, so we are working together at a community level to do that. So I can't answer, I'm not the expert. We do have folks at Public Health. I can take those questions to them about the sheriff's office has information about whether you see crime go up, etc. But I can tell you that that's one of the things we're doing to get upstream at Public Health.
Can you bring any of them to the West Hill Skyway CSA meeting next week?
To the youth serving agencies?
The folks that are have something to say about the impact of marijuana businesses.
I can see if we have data on it. I can certainly do that. Where's Andre? She's still here.
Can anyone speak to what executive
I have two
council?
other people queued up with questions. Bill? 3.
My question is about process more than anything else. This community has faced all kinds of process problems over the last year. We were given 30 days notice about an men's only shelter going in last fall, and we spent the fall arguing and finally arriving at a compromise, largely from the efforts of the teenagers in the area to make sure that it was a family shelter. But we hadn't heard about that. We were told to come to a meeting in September and that it was going to open in November. Okay, back in April, we saw an article in the West Side Weekly talking all about Beer Star and what was going to happen to the Epicure. There wasn't a word in there about the pot process in the basement. And all of it, and in that article.
When was the article?
It was in the West Side Weekly back in April, I believe.
In April?
And all of a sudden, the last couple of weeks, we're hearing about that there's going to be a pot manufacturing organization in there. Grow the stuff, process the stuff, and you've got a restaurant upstairs, maybe Growler, I understand, according to that article, that they were going to have kids' activities in it as well. Right next to all the toxics from the production of the pot for all of the local dealers, I guess. Cutoff period for comments was May 25th. Is the council ready to, what other input can we have to deny this permit?
So I'll tell you right now, comment period, the reason we have a comment period, the way it says minimum comment period, is to make sure that we do not make a decision until there is that date. So there is a minimum period. But you are allowed to submit comments all the way up until we issue a decision. And anyone can submit a comment at any point in time. to us about it. But here's the thing that I want to encourage people to do. When you submit a comment, look at the decision criteria that we have to hold them to. Because the reality is there is a code that allows the use up to a certain level, and then there is a conditional use permit up to another level. We are going to be looking at those decision criteria. If you can, the best way to comment is to look at those decision criteria and say, here's how I feel like it either does or does not meet these criteria. That helps us as we review the application. Now, I know from looking at some of these operations what they do. I mean, they grow the stuff in this room. They set up basically almost like a false environment. It's entirely contained. They have to get an air quality permit from the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency. And they make sure basically that there is no toxic exhaust coming out of that space. Now, I'm not an expert in that. We rely on the Puget Sound Clean Air Agency for that quality review of that. But the comment period is open until we render a decision, and the type of decision that it is, it's a type 2 land use permit, which means it is an administrative decision made by your department, but anyone in the public can appeal that decision if they don't feel that the decision criteria have been met.
If you've got money.
$250 filing fee for an appeal.
And then-
Kevin, where would one find the decision criteria?
It is listed in the King County Code, or you can just email me. I have my card, and I think we have more contact information. By all means, send me a quick email, ask for the decision criteria, I'll send it right back to you. I think Liz can attest to that.
If you get home without Kevin's email, I'll look you up.
And Kevin, I do want to thank you because you did provide that information to people who asked in the past.
So, yeah, I mean,
So
we're
we
not
do
trying to
appreciate that.
hide this from anyone. The whole point is the conditional use permit is to notify and get comments from the community so that we can basically reflect the public's interest in the decisions we make.
Liz,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
I'll take it later.
Just a quick one. I wanted to get back to, is there any way that we can funnel some of the monies that come from the pot shops, or I don't know who to ask that question?
Yeah, I'm probably not.
I know, I don't know
Yeah, I
who
don't
to
deal
ask
with
that
the
to,
tax
but-
policy around.
So that was one question, and just, well, I guess that's enough.
No,
I don't know
I
who can
think-
answer that.
I think you answered when I asked, I think it was more of a whisper up here, the money that King County does receive as tax revenue from the marijuana retail sales by state statute has to go to controlling juvenile use and law enforcement, is that correct? So we don't have that flexibility.
It says enforcement
Enforcement.
in the language, and the money that comes to us is controlled and funneled by the state, and they're the ones who would be able ostensibly to tell us where that money was coming from. But they don't have a system that can tell you what neighborhood those funds are coming from. Their system doesn't work like that. So they don't have the ability to tell us
Yes, it does.
what portion.
When you fill out the Department of Revenue business tax, you have to break it down by category and unincorporated, what
Right.
tax code.
It says
So
unincorporated
it knows
King County,
what
so-
neighborhood it's
So it's
coming
for all
from.
of unincorporated King County. Yeah.
It's different.
Well, and the tax is all at the retail level.
Next is Bree.
And King County knows very well where all the retail.
I'm sorry, Bree?
Yeah, to change subjects, I'm interested in knowing what the county's doing concerning, the February treatment plant, having a problem and what environmentally we're doing for Puget Sound and with all of the city planning in between the roads and everything, and when we have, new storms and everything gets washed in the drain and gets into Puget Sound, and Puget Sound is now being really polluted. I'm really interested in knowing how the county is, when you permit new properties, how are you assessing for the water that's coming off of those buildings and how much water is being put back into the sound off of the streets and the traffic? Because I don't feel, in my opinion, things are being processed very well that way. And I'm wondering, especially with the port and things, because it looks like a lot of the areas around downtown, and when you come over the West Seattle Bridge, there's that whole area of just concrete, and it doesn't look like there's anything being done in and out of that. And what is our commitment to
lot there.
Yes or no?
Let me start by speaking to the cataclysmic failure at West Point, and then I'll turn it over to Doug to speak maybe more generally about stormwater runoff as part of your question. We had a cataclysmic failure in a huge storm at West Point. 2 pumps failed, including a backup system that should have kept them operating, and flooded the system, untreated wastewater, sewage, and I could try to tell you it was a small amount of sewage and a large amount of runoff, but really, once there's a little bit of sewage and a lot of runoff, it's all sewage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Discharged into Puget Sound. And I want to give compliments to the department and the staff at West Point who worked around the clock for days to clean up, to stop the outflow, to clean up, and to begin to rebuild. The council acted quickly on the executive's request to fund emergency contracts and waive some of our usual contracting procedures to make sure we could address it all very quickly. We did that, and the council has directed an independent review, cooperating with the department, to make sure that we have a comprehensive understanding of what happened, what the failure was, and most importantly, how to make sure that doesn't happen again. So there's West Point. Doug, if you want to speak to stormwater more generally.
My name's Doug Benson, I'm stormwater manager with King County, and we operate under a permit that's issued by the state. And my life is an alphabet soup, so I live in acronyms. So if I use any acronyms that you don't understand, please let me know. We've been under a stormwater permit since 1995, and the permit gets reissued every 5 years, and every time it ratchets up the effort. One of the things to understand, though, is that much of the county was developed before there was any stormwater regulations at all. So we don't have the facilities that we need in areas that were developed in the pre-90s. That said, studies that we've been doing over the last several years have shown that although we're not improving things, we're holding our own. We're holding the line. And we're constantly improving and we're constantly ratcheting it up. The latest thing that we're doing is with what we call low-impact development or green stormwater infrastructure. You might see those as rain gardens or pervious pavements or green roofs or things like that. That's now a mandatory requirement for any new development or redevelopment that gets permitted through the Department of Environmental Review, Permitting and Environmental Review. So we have an extensive program. Certainly we can do more. We're looking at working with the Department of Ecology on the next permit, which should be issued next year, which will actually became what we call a retrofitting effort, which is going into areas that are already developed and building new facilities as a requirement. One of the other challenges that we have is that every jurisdiction has their own stormwater permit, and they're not all equal. So King County is what's called a phase 1 permit, and so we have much higher level of effort that we're required to do by permit, whereas some of the other jurisdictions in the area, like Burien or SeaTac or Kent or Federal Way, are under a phase 2 permit. So they've only been under permits since 2007, so they're still ratcheting up.
Thank you.
So just to add to that, one of the comments I wanted to bring from wastewater tonight is they have been doing water quality testing around the area, and to date, those tests are falling in the normal area around it. It's open for recreation, swimming. They're continuing to monitor it and work with the Department of Ecology moving forward.
Gil, and then Liz.
A couple of comment and questions concerning permitting. Okay. I walked through downtown Light Center, Keeneland, and I recently noticed that a business down there had torn the inside of the building out down to the 2x4s, had taken out all the concrete floor, and they were taking out wheelbarrows when I went by. So I stopped by and asked for the permit last week. Oh, they didn't have it. So I said, can you give me the owner's name? They did. I called him, he said, I don't need a permit. However, I was told by a deeper person earlier today that they needed a permit. So I know I can do code enforcement, but the county must be losing out lots of money for a business that's improved, that's increased its value. That would mean there'd be more taxes coming to the county.
We need you to walk around more, Gil.
No, I don't. How about code enforcement? permitting has been done over, there were 3 last year, 3 this year, and the rest permits are gonna come over. I know what the person's doing. They're doing these permits, not adjacent properties, they're doing every others. So they don't have to have, there's no mitigation of any kind required in that. No sidewalks, no nothing. We checked into it. So can the county take a look at these kind of developments? Maybe have a 2 or 3 year span, so if the permits are in that range, then we could get things done. Because right now, it's gonna be the same as it was before. The streets haven't been improved, there's no sidewalks, you know. And it's not me specifically. I mean, I have to put up with the dust and stuff, don't get me wrong, but it's not that. I just don't like to see these developments going in without the improvements that are necessary for our community. And the developer should pay part of that cost. Anyway, the other question about the business downtown. White Center.
The business downtown White Center, we don't usually go around looking for things. I mean, if in fact we find something in process and we can confirm they don't have a permit, then yeah, we will pick it up. But most of the time, we're relying on people to call us and say, hey, what's going on here? Let code enforcement know and we'll check it out.
I understand that. I know what that's mostly like. But in the business area where it's really obvious, there have to be a number of county employees in the area. You know, I know Bong is in the area generally, and other, the sheriff's deputies. Can't someone just say, hey, what's going on with that? And, let your office know. Otherwise, you count on the citizens to always follow up on this stuff. And it gets kind of tiring, honestly, after all. I've done code before.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll take it from anybody.
If I may, about the residential development, so you're absolutely right, you spotted what happens there a lot of times where someone, a developer, if you will buy up a row of lots on an older street. And sometimes, these are narrow lots,
They're
25-foot
2,500
wide,
square feet.
25-foot widers, and basically they will just build house after house on that because our rules are basically slanted towards a single property owner saying, hey, I want to build my house. And the way it's always been is, well, basically that is not creating a new impact because most of these lots down here already had a house on them, so they're taking that down. And the only time we require those frontage improvements is when there's basically new development. So like, I'm working on a plat called the Smith Plat. It's a 24-lot residential townhome over on 14th Avenue Southwest. And they're gonna be putting a little cul-de-sac and ringed around and they gotta do curb gutter and sidewalk on 14th as well as curb gutter and sidewalk in the cul-de-sac that they're building because they're developing. They also would have had to do sidewalk down the street in order to connect it to make a safe walkway for the schools, but we don't do that to a single family property owner who just wants to build a house. Unfortunately, some of our more, skookum developers have figured that out and they buy these lots and they go, I'm just building it. Now, I'd say.
The big sign says 14 houses.
Well, how they market it is different than the,
Yeah.
so that's unfortunate.
I know.
I think you point to a good loophole, and I think it's a kind of thing to point out when we make policy decisions at the larger level,
That's
so that
right.
we can kind of catch these things going down the road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Liz and Barbara, I'm trying to take a couple of people in the neighborhood. We'll get you, Mark.
Very good.
Kevin, the article that Bill was referring to was right after the date determined complete on your notice. So I
Okay.
think within 8 days. And I think I sent it the link, but I can do it again.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So I don't know where the article came from, but it wasn't something that we wrote. I mean, as far as noticing goes, so it's really up to the property owner to explain it. I'm sure if they had told the editor or the journalist who was writing that, I'm sure they would have loved to tell more people about what they had found out. They didn't disclose it to them. So unfortunately, they didn't ask me or I would have told them.
There were 2 articles, actually, one in the Seattle Met and one in the West Seattle White Center News.
Yep.
I think a lot of the concern that I have, to get back to your question, is I feel like they're not being very open about what's happening. On December 29th, the Liquor and Cannabis Board issued a permit to produce and process marijuana to the bar, farm, and nursery in Enumclaw. That license number is the same number they applied, Mr. Wyman applied under. On January 9th, so less than 2 weeks later, the Liquor Control Board submitted a notice to King County, at Mr. Constantine's attention, indicating that it was going, the license had been asked to be assumed by the White Center entity. So they never grew or produced any weed under the license before they submitted it to the county. We did not find out about that this goings on until like the day before the appeal period ended. The articles in the Seattle Met and the West Seattle Herald had been published. Not a word. I think I'm concerned that I want to have business people in our area that are honest with us about what they're doing and honest with the state and with the county about what they're doing. And I want the county to come check things out. They got his license number.
I mean, I read those articles, and I thought they were great, because it's actually bringing, I think White Center's kind of at a tipping point right now. It's one of those neighborhoods that is being revitalized.
Oh, they were great.
And Beer Star is one of those sort of pillar shops in White Center that we need to support.
But they weren't
But
honest.
I don't think that has to do with the Beer Star. It has to do with the owner of the property being, sort of going sideways to get a permit to grow marijuana. And I'm not saying that's right. I'm not defending that by any means. My only point was, is that causing crime and problems that we're seeing? And maybe so, maybe not, I don't know.
We don't, none of us know.
But I think that, White Center is at a tipping point, and I think we're all gonna benefit when places like Beer Star come in, who have a place in Ballard, Capitol Hill and these sort of places, and they're coming to White Center because they know that people are moving here, buying homes, and it's getting better. I think. I've been here for 20 years. My kids go to the Highline School District. I mean, I'm in this community. I know it. So I think it's gotten better, I would say.
I hope it continues to get better.
Right.
But I think we have to watch over things.
Sure.
And encourage good business owners, honest people, We've been,
They did file a permit. I mean,
Right.
that's a plus in their favor.
I have to say,
Yeah.
I've been with King County Department of Permitting and Environmental Review for just about 3 years now. And right after I started is when we started getting more and more of the marijuana uses.
Sure.
And to tell you the truth, I mean, this is an industry that is literally stepping out of the shadows. And so the people that do this, that are kind of expert at it, that know what they're doing, they were already doing it before, but they were doing it illegally. So when they come into our office, they don't even know how to be honest about what they're doing. We would have them walk up to the counter, and they'd say, I want to do this thing, and they'd start kind of dancing around, and we'd say, are you talking about growing marijuana? Yeah, we are. And they were afraid to talk about it, and we'd say, you have to be completely open and honest with us about what you want to do, how you want to do it. So these guys, they want to grow, and their processing is they want to dry it, so they can put it in packaging, barcode it, and give it to the retailer.
But processors are also allowed to do extracts as well, aren't they?
If they get it under the conditional use permit, they have to identify what kind of processing they're going to do. These guys have said, you're only drying, which means we can make a condition, you can only dry. So that's where we can say, clamp down on what you're doing, because our fire marshal says, we're not comfortable with all these other things you want to do, especially if it's kind of an amateur operation and whatever. no, that's not okay. So that's where we start to say, what are you doing? Explain it to us, be as open and honest with us about what it is you're doing. And to talk about the licensing aspect, if they didn't get their license, obviously they could never open, but it's completely feasible for someone to say, I want to get a conditional use permit before I go through the effort of getting my license transferred to this location, because we may not approve it. And then they'd be like, well, now we're out of all that effort to get it there in the first place. So someone could say, I haven't even applied with the state yet. We'd like a conditional use permit to do X, Y, and Z. Now we'll go to the state and get our license transferred. And it's just like any other liquor license. You can purchase it from one person, move it to a new location if it's allowable.
I would understand that if
If they
the
had been
people,
forthcoming about
and
it.
if the people
Yeah.
who got the license from the state had had it for at least 2 weeks.
Right, well,
That really doesn't look good.
Yeah, well, it looks like
so, yeah.
All right, did you have a question? This was your question, and then I know you had a question, and Barbara.
Well, I have two questions. One is, how come if you want to make a comment on a project, you have to pay $200 to $250?
That's only to
You don't
appeal.
That's only to appeal.
That's only to
So
appeal.
if you just want to comment on it?
Just
you're
write us a
for it
letter.
or against?
You can write a hard copy letter, and you can send an email. That's the best way to comment, so it's written in the record. Phone messages don't get saved as a public record, so.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have to pay $200?
Oh,
No,
absolutely not.
you do not have to pay
Oh,
$250.
No, then I should have wrote some letters.
That's only if you're appealing the decision. Comments until the decision is made are all free.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Yes.
Comment early and often. So they say.
This is for John. Thank you so much for your opinion in the Seattle Times on assets and the cost of what taxes are. I don't know how many people read it, but it was excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
And I hope that you would talk to the Seattle Times more and get into the front page or the front section. Some of those facts.
I sometimes feel it's better, I do my best work kind of.
But I want you to know, it's a wonderful, eye-opening article.
As Harold would say, what was that again?
So I have a question about annexation in our schools, because I remember being told from someone else who went to another annexation meeting that Highline's, like our schools in this area would actually stay a part of Highline School District. So I think for me, one of the biggest issues is I want to make sure that funding goes to our schools, and if they're continuing to be a part of the Highline School District, why aren't they they're not going to be getting the funding from Seattle, and are they going to be getting funding from that extra money coming in?
So, great question. Seattle is courting them to come to them, and what they have said, and we have not done any public meetings or all that stuff is coming. So there'll be lots of opportunities to learn more about this, but Kenny Pittman, who's my counterpart at the city of Seattle, has said that it is their intent to extend those programs that are part of their thank you, to kids in the Highline School District. That's their intent, but that's something that will all get worked out, and it will be a part of the dialogue when we come to the community and say, this is what we're thinking, these are the answers that we have for you.
For me, I think for a lot of people, it's a huge issue. I mean, if you go down to Cascade and Evergreen down there, those are in terrible condition.
Yeah.
Kids should not be playing soccer on a dirt field.
Yeah.
Like, I think
That's getting replaced.
Is
Vote
it?
for the bonds, vote for the money.
Oh, and absolutely. And
It's in our hands.
I don't even have
4
kids.
years.
But I vote for the school of bonds because I know that improving our schools improves our community and it improves the future of this area.
Yeah.
And I think it's of utmost importance to make sure our kids are going to great schools with great teachers. And I just don't, I know we have really low ratings, and I have friends in the area who are thinking about moving because their kids are becoming of school age and they don't want their kids going to these schools, which then hurts the low-income school children because they don't have the resources from the higher income children. So I think it's really just crucial that we get funding into the schools in this area, especially if we're being asked to be annexed by Seattle.
The entire point of annexation is to extend urban-level services to an urban community, which you are, because the county was designed to provide rural-level services, and those are the kinds of funding sources that we have that are appropriate for that. Seattle has funding sources that can appropriately scale urban level services, which is what you need.
But if we continue to be part of the Highline School District, then will we still get the funding towards the schools, or will it just be additional programs?
Can I take that one?
Thank you,
Let's
John.
get that changed. So your school are funded by both state and local tax dollars. Your local tax dollar is based on the property tax you pay on your specific home, or if you're in an apartment complex, that complex. There are a lot of places around King County where you have a urban jurisdiction where there are multiple school districts. And we very carefully, that's why we have 596 levy codes. We make sure that the house you live in, that you pay taxes for that school district, goes to that school district. So depending upon how any annexation is worked out, they'll come to us and say, okay, the line for the school district is now here. And so we'll make sure that that funds go to the Highline School District if the agreement is the Highline School District boundary will include that area. Does that help kind of clarify for you?
Yeah, it does. I do have a question though concerning the taxes and the low-income housing, because I know the low-income housing is exempt from some taxation. Does that include taxes that are going to our school districts? Because a lot of these kids need to be using those resources, and they should be going to just as good a schools as someone in Admiral or in North Seattle.
That's part of what our dear friends in the legislature are struggling with right now, to make sure that there is adequate funding across the state and across King County for school districts.
As a clarification about the Seattle funding, so all the schools get certain level of funding. People vote on bonds and levies that support local operations. Levies are for learning, bonds are for building the schools. But in Seattle, they also passed an additional family and education levy. That garners a lot of extra tax dollars that they use to reinvest in programs in their schools. And what Seattle has gone on record as saying, and again, nothing's signed yet because there's no annexation, they have gone on record saying that for those schools that become a part of, if we are annexed, the schools remain in the Highline District, but they will provide the additional programming that is available to Seattle Public Schools with those other programs like school-based health centers, and I think preschool is part of it. There's a whole bunch of different programs that
The school district funding, both levies and bonds, will stay as is. But
that boundary does not change.
But you're
with
saying that
annexation.
what Seattle has said is that the additional levy they pass by the city, not the school district,
Correct.
would
extend to
extend and support
if
the students who live in the new city of Seattle
For
territory.
the
as
schools
well.
that are inside the.
We'll pay for it.
Yeah.
We'll pay for it.
Barbara?
What?
I'm sorry,
No,
you guys, right?
Does that answer your
Right.
question?
To some degree, yeah. I'll have more, I'm sure.
I was, for Kevin Leclerc.
Yes.
So I live right across the street from the big housing, the 614 housing development that's going in.
Okay.
And I had a lot of frustration with Deeper because this winter my front yard had 3 inches of water in it, practically the whole winter from the drainage from that project. I called Deeper multiple times. I never got a response. People were cleaning paintbrushes in the street, across the street. I mean, I finally got a response from somebody and they never got back with me. And then I called somebody else and they never got back with me. I mean, nobody really responded to any of the concerns that were going on. And I found that very frustrating. And so how do we get any of these issues resolved if nobody gets back with us?
Well, first of all, I'm sorry that no one got back to you, because that's not how we try and operate. I would say, you know who I am. You've got my number and my email.
I
So if-
did ask for you.
So I did not get the message
They
about it,
told me
but,
to come out to the office.
So,
And-
the way it works, for construction projects, if something is under construction with a permit, you should ask to talk to an inspection supervisor. And that way, they can get an inspector to go out on the building permit and make a special inspection. And they will visit sites on an on-call basis, just go out and make sure somebody's not doing something like washing paintbrushes down the storm drain or washing off concrete into the storm drains or something like that. If it's not under a permit, and you can always call and ask, say, I just want to find out if they have a permit on this property. If there's no permit, then you know, okay, now I'll talk to a code enforcement officer and file a code complaint. And then one of our enforcement officers, one of Cheryl's group, will go out and actually visit the site and say, time out, you don't have a permit, or we need to find out what you're doing and if you need a permit, first of all.
Well,
And if they have a permit, then one of our inspectors will come out, and if they're doing something wrong, they may not get back to you, but they will talk with the people. So I can guarantee you that someone, if you were making comments to us and leaving us messages, it was getting through, but I'll have to, apologize that the word wasn't getting back to you, that something was happening.
Well, I don't know, but
I don't either.
my
But I don't know
concern
the
too
details.
is with the density, that neighborhood was zoned up for 2,500 square foot lots 60 years ago,
Yeah.
so. And now they're starting to do all this infill, and we've had no infrastructure improvement. My street is cracking, the construction vehicles were parked right in front of my, we don't have sidewalks, so there's gravel in front of my house, and I had huge ruts from these giant construction vehicles. I asked them not to park there, and I was told it's county property, and we had to get gravel ourselves to fill in the ruts. The county doesn't take care of it. And so there's all this damage being done to the community from these heavy construction vehicles and all the work and the water runoff, and there's absolutely no mitigation for this. And so developers make a lot of money and the rest of us suffer. And so I don't understand how the county is continuing to allow these permits without doing any infrastructure improvement. And I know, keep saying the county's not, they don't serve urban areas, then don't do this type of building if you can't serve the area.
Point well taken. Yeah.
So I just wanted to add one more point to that. If you see anything but stormwater going down a storm drain, we have a water quality hotline. We also have code enforcement authority for anything that's illegally dumped down the storm drain. I have the number if you want it, but it's also on our website. But
Well, to
it's
tell you, we don't
only-
even have storm drains on the street.
And I think it's 24/7 hotline.
It's a 24/7 hotline, so if you see anything entering the stormwater system, whether it's a roadside ditch or going down a drain or anything like that, all that stuff goes somewhere. And it doesn't go to a treatment plant. There's only a couple of areas left in the county that has what we call a combined system. So everything either gets to a stream, a river, a lake, or goes to ground, or goes to Puget Sound.
I don't understand how they didn't even have to put in storm drains. So all this water just pools on the street now.
Just, Barbara, it doesn't help in the impacts for construction, but the long-term impact to the community is you'll have those houses those newly built houses paying property taxes.
But that doesn't come back to the
It
community.
comes back to the county.
But it's not coming back to the community. It's not fixing the street. It's not putting in sidewalks. It's not helping the community.
That's why they're trying to get somebody to annex us, so that we get urban services.
Right, but don't we deserve a government that
I just want to comment on, because I was involved in this, I've tried doing searches, I've spent hours and hours doing searches in the county sites about permitting, particularly next door to me. I learned a lot through doing that. However, it would be really nice if there was some way that the county had a Google search engine. So if I put in a question about how high can the fence be between me and the property next to me, I can actually find out. I did call, and within 24 hours, I got a call back from the lady answered the question. But I was trying to do it online to save the time, honestly, of employees. But the other thing I found out, and it was online, but I had to dig deep, was that this is for general information, if someone's doing construction, they have to cover it within 7 days of rain starting. And there's several different things you use. And if it's during the summertime, 2 days, of rain, in the summertime, when it dries out and it does start snowing, last year we had a dust storm in our house, they have 7 days to cover. So just be aware, if you live next to a construction site, there are some things you can have the county follow up on, and that's appreciated. One other question on the code, my understanding is it correct that all businesses in the county are required to have garbage pickup?
I don't know for sure.
I believe they're not, but that's just
My
lore.
understanding is that, again, since we develop, we're designed to provide rural level services, that is not, my understanding is that's not a requirement, because in the rural area, you bag up your garbage and you take it to the dump, every couple of weeks.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was a special
Yeah,
requirement
that's my
for
understanding.
the